Dustin Johnson heads into the Open as the top-ranked player in the world, and he's also an understandable betting favorite as he looks to win a second career major. Johnson has not played since the U.S. Open, where he led by 4 shots at the halfway point and eventually finished third. He has 3 top 10 finishes in 9 Open appearances, notably a T2 finish at Royal Street, Georges in 2011. Johnson opened as a 12-1 favorite when the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook first published odds for Carnoust after the U.S. Open, and he remains at that number with the first round just 3 days away. Here's a look at the latest odds on some of the other top contenders. According to the Westgate, 12-1, Dustin Johnson 16-1, Rory McIlroy, Ricky Fowler, Justin Rose 20-1, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Tommy Fleetwood, Brooks Koepka, John Ram 25-1, Jason Day, Henrik Stenson, Tiger Woods 30-1, Sergio Garcia, Francesco Molinari, Paul Casey, Alex Noren, Patrick Reed 40-1, Hideki Matsuyama, Mark Leishman, Brandon Grace, Tyrrell Hatton 50-1, Phil Mickelson, Ian Poulter, Matthew Fitzpatrick 60-1, Russell Knox, Lewis Oosthuizen, Matt Kuchar, Bryson DeChambeau, Zach Johnson, Tony Finau, Bubba Watson 80-1, Lee Westwood, Adam Scott, Patrick Cantlay, Rafael Cabrera Bello, Thomas Pieters, Xander Schauffele 100-1, Shane Lowry, Webb Simpson, Grant Snedeker, Brian Fox, Torbjorn Olesen. Article tags, Dustin Johnson, 2018 Open Championship, the Open. If Tiger Woods is going to qualify for the final WGC Bridgestone Invitational at Firestone Country Club, he'll need to do something he hasn't done in 5 years this week at the Open. Woods has won 8 times at Firestone, including his most recent PGA Tour victory in 2013, and has openly stated that he would like to qualify for the no-cut event in Akron before it shifts to Memphis next year. But in order to do so, Woods will need to move into the top 50 in the official World Golf Ranking after this week's event at Carnoust. Woods is currently ranked No. 71 in the world, down 2 spots from last week, and based on projections it means that he'll need to finish no worse than a tie for 8th to have a chance of cracking the top 50. Woods' last top 10 finish at a major came at the 2013 Open at Muirfield, where he tied for 6th. Updated official World Golf Ranking. There are actually 2 OWGR cutoffs for the Bridgestone, July 23rd and July 30th. That means that Woods could theoretically still add a start at next week's RBC Canadian Open to chase a spot in the top 50, but he has said on multiple occasions that this week will be his last start of the month. The WGC Bridgestone Invitational will be played August 2nd -5. There wasn't much movement in the world rankings last week, with the top 10 staying the same heading into the season's 3rd major. Dustin Johnson remains world number 1, followed by Justin Thomas, Justin Rose, Brooks Koepka and John Ram. Defending Open champ Jordan Spieth is ranked 6th, with Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy, Jason Day and Tommy Fleetwood rounding out the top 10. Despite taking the week off, Sweden's Alex Noren moved up 3 spots from number 14 to number 11, passing Patrick Reed, Bubba Watson and Paul Casey. John Deere Classic champ Michael Kim went from No. 473 to number 215 in the latest rankings, while South African Brendan Stone jumped from 371st to 110th with his win at the Scottish Open. Article tags, Tiger Woods, 2018 Open Championship, the Open Carnoust, Scotland, as his title chances seemed to be slipping away during the final round of last year's Open Championship. Jordan Spieth's caddy took a moment to remind him who he was. Following a bogey at No. 13, Michael Greller referenced a recent vacation he'd taken to Mexico where he'd spent time with Michael Phelps and Michael Jordan and why he deserved to be among that group of singular athletes. Spieth, who won last year's Open, decided to continue the tradition, spending time in Cabo again before this week's championship. Full coverage of the 147th Open Championship. I kind of went through the same schedule, Spieth said on Monday at Carnoust. It was nice to have a little vacation. Spieth hasn't played since the Travelers Championship. Instead, he attended the Special Olympics USA Games earlier this month in Seattle with his sister. It was Spieth's first time back to the Pacific Northwest since he won the 2015 U.S. Open. "I went out to Chambers Bay with Greller," Spieth said. "We kind of walked down the 18th hole. It was cool reliving those memories. But most of all," Spieth said, he needed a break after a particularly tough season. "I had the itch to get back to it, after a couple weeks of not really working," he said. "It was nice to kind of have that itch to get back." Article tags 2018 Open Championship, Jordan Spieth. Carnoust, Scotland. One course came to mind when Padraig Harrington arrived on property and saw firm, fast and yellow Carnoust. Hoylake in 2006. That's when Tiger Woods avoided every bunker, bludgeoned the links with mid-irons and captured the last of his 3 Open titles. So Harrington was asked, given the similarity and firmness between Carnoust and Hoylake, can Tiger stir the ghosts this week? Full coverage of the 147th Open Championship. "I really don't know," Harrington said Monday. "He's good enough to win this championship, no doubt about it. I don't think he could play golf like the way he did in 2006. Nobody else could have tried to play the golf course the way he did, and nobody else could have played the way he did. I suspect he couldn't play that way now either. But I don't know if that's the strategy this week, to lay up that far back. With 3 days until the start of this championship, that's the biggest question mark for Harrington, the 2007 winner here. He doesn't know what his strategy will be, but his game plan will need to be fluid. Do you attack the course with driver and try to fly the fairway bunkers? Or do you attempt to lay back with an iron, even though it's difficult to control the amount of run out on the baked-out fairways and bring the bunkers into play? The fairways at Hoylake are quite flat, even though they were very fast," Harrington said. "There's a lot of undulations in the fairways here, so if you are trying to lay up, you can get hit the back of a slope and kick forward an extra 20 or 30 yards more than you think. So it's not as easy to eliminate all the risk by laying up." Carnoust, Scotland. Justin Thomas took a familiar slash with his driver on the 18th tee on Monday at Carnoust and watched anxiously as his golf ball bounced and bounded down the fairway. Unlike the 2 previous editions of the Open, at what is widely considered the road's most demanding test, a particularly warm and dry summer has left Carnoust a parched shade of yellow and players like Thomas searching for answers. Under the best circumstances, Carnoust is every bit the unforgiving participant. But this week promises to be something altogether different, with players already dumbfounded by how far the ball is chasing down fairways and over greens. "Brown is beautiful here at Royal Dark, where most practice rounds at the Open are spent trying to figure out what lines are the best off tees. This is more a study of lesser evils. Tee shots, like at the par 4 17th hole, ask multiple questions with few answers." On his first attempt, Thomas hit 2 iron off the tee at no. 17. It cleared the berry burn and bounded down the middle of the fairway. Perfect, right? Not this year at Carnoust, as Thomas's tee shot kept rolling until it reached the same burn, which twists and turns through both the 17th and 18th fairways, at a farther intersection. Full coverage of the 147th Open Championship, a hole like 17 in this wind. "The trick is getting a club that will carry the burn," said Thomas, who played 18 holes on Monday with Tiger Woods. "If that hole gets downwind, you can have a hard time carrying the burn and keeping it short of the other burn. It's pretty bizarre." The 6th hole can offer a similar dilemma, with players needing to carry their tee shots 275 yards to avoid a pair of pot bunkers down the right side of the fairway. Yet just 26 yards past those pitfalls looms a second set of bunkers. Even for the game's best, trying to weave a fairway wood or long iron into a 26-yard window can be challenging. 6 is a really hard hole. It really just depends on how you want to play it. If you want to take everything on and have a chance of hitting an iron into a par 5, or just kind of lay back and play it as a 3-shot hole. Thomas shrugged. It's difficult to quantify precisely how short the 7,400-yard layout is playing. It's not so far. Players are flying the ball in the air, particularly with relatively little wind in the forecast the rest of the week, so much as it is a question of how a particular shot will run out after it's made contact with the firm turf. As the field began to get their first taste of the bouncy, fun, one of the earliest indications something was askew came on Sunday when Padraig Harrington, who won the Open the last time it was played at Carnoust in 2007, announced to the social world that he'd hit into the burn on the 18th hole. This time it was the one at the green, 457 yards away, the Irishman tweeted. The fairways are a tad fast. Most players have already resigned themselves to a steady diet of mid-irons off tees this week in an attempt to at least partially control the amount of run-out each shot will have. Jordan Spieth, the defending champion, hadn't played a practice round prior to his media session, but could tell what's in store just from his abbreviated range session on Monday. Extremely baked out, he said. The conditions have already led Spieth and his caddy, Michael Greller, to conjure up a tentative game plan. You might wear out your 5 and 4 irons off the tee instead of hitting 3 or 2 irons like you're used to, Greller told him. Even that might not be the answer, as Tommy Fleetwood discovered on Sunday during a practice round. Fleetwood has a unique connection with Carnoust, having shot the course record 63 during last year's Dunhill Links Championship. The Englishman doesn't expect his record to be in danger this week. In fact, he explained the dramatically different conditions were evident on the third hole on Sunday. There's holes that have been nothing tee shots, like the third. If you play that in the middle of September or October, when the Dunhill is played, and it's green and soft, you could just hit a mid-iron down the fairway and knock it on with a wedge, Fleetwood said. Yesterday it was playing so firm, the fairways really undulate and you have bunkers on either side, it's actually all of a sudden a tough tee shot. The alternative to the iron game plan off the tee would be to simply hit driver, an option at least one long hitter is considering this week if his practice round was any indication. On Sunday, Jon Rahm played aggressively off each tee, taking the ubiquitous fairway bunkers out of play but at the same time tempting fate with each fairway ringed by fescue rough, which is relatively tame given the dry conditions. But even that option has consequences. It's kind of strange where there's not really a number that you know you're going to be short, said Fleetwood, who played his Sunday practice round with Rahm. Rahm hit a drive on 15 that was like 400 yards. You just can't account for that kind of stuff. Whatever tactic players choose, this Open Championship promises to be a much different test than what players have become accustomed to at Carnoust.